I want you to think about a room, not a physical room, but the room inside your mind. For most of my life, my mind felt less like a quiet sanctuary and more like a cramped storage unit, overflowing with boxes labeled "What if?" and "Should I have?" Every decision, big or small, became a heavy anchor, dragging me under. I'd sit at my desk, a college student with the world open to her, but completely paralyzed by the sheer volume of choices. The path ahead wasn't foggy. It was clear. But I was too busy analyzing every grain of potential pavement to take the first step. My name is Maya. I'm 20, studying at State University, and I'm supposed to be vibrant, driven, and full of potential. That's what my acceptance letter promised anyway. But my reality was different. My biggest struggle wasn't chemistry equations or late-night study sessions. It was the endless mental simulation of the future. I wasn't just planning. I was predicting, analyzing, and ultimately freezing. It's a subtle form of self-sabotage that feels a lot like responsible consideration. Take my college major, for instance. I was 2 years in, still officially undeclared. I loved writing, the way words could build worlds, but what if I couldn't get a job that paid the bills? I was decent at coding, solving problems logically, but what if I hated sitting behind a screen for 40 years? I spent 12 hours creating a pros and cons list that was longer than most of my term papers. Every night, I would run the two scenarios side by side in my head, calculating the net present value of my happiness versus my financial security. The math never added up, and the paralysis only grew. If I choose CS, I'll be rich, but I'll be miserable. If I choose English, I'll be happy, but I'll live in a cardboard box. The fear of regret was overwhelming. But what if I hate the introductory CS course and the advanced courses are actually amazing? But what if I get halfway through the English degree and realize I missed the golden window for tech? The conversation had no exit ramp. It was a mental merry-go-round, spinning faster and faster, but never actually moving forward. I was expending massive amounts of mental energy just to remain in the exact same spot. Have you ever felt that intense pressure, where the fear of making the wrong choice is so powerful that you just choose nothing? That's the core of overthinking. It's the illusion of progress. We feel like we're solving the problem because we're thinking so hard, wrestling with every variable. But the truth is, thinking is not doing. It's the difference between studying a map in a tent and actually stepping onto the trail. Only one of those moves you forward. This spring, it was the internship deadline. A perfect opportunity at a great firm, exactly where I knew I needed to be to gain experience. The application asked for a simple 300-word statement. Simple, right? I drafted it 5 times, then 7. Then I started wondering if the font size I chose unconsciously signaled a lack of confidence. I obsessed over the word choice in the second sentence for an hour. Should I use utilize or use? Does utilize sound pretentious? Or does use sound too basic for a competitive application? I was trapped in the perfection trap. I believed that if I could just think about it one more time, review it one more minute, the answer, the perfect, guaranteed success answer, would materialize. I convinced myself that the moment I clicked submit, I had lost my power to refine and optimize. I felt powerful, only in the moment of indecision. The application sat in the drafts folder until the clock struck midnight and the deadline passed. I felt a hollow defeat, knowing it wasn't failure that beat me, but my own internal monologue. It wasn't just school and career decisions. The paralysis seeped into my social life. My friends invited me to a small concert last Friday. I spent the afternoon debating. Should I go? What if I spend all day thinking about the internship I missed? What if the tickets were too expensive for the quality of the band? By the time I decided that the emotional benefits outweighed the logistical risks, it was already 8 p.m. and the concert had already started. The fear of an imperfect evening kept me home in a perfect state of loneliness. The most exhausting part of overthinking isn't the effort. It's the sheer mental load of carrying unfinished, postponed decisions. It weighs on you like 100 tiny, unwritten emails. I felt like a coiled spring, wound tight with potential energy, but unable to release it into motion. I was tired, not from doing too much, but from constantly thinking about doing too much. I was burning out on an imaginary workload. One afternoon, I found myself sitting by the river near campus, watching the water flow. The river doesn't pause to worry if it's taking the best route to the sea. It doesn't stop to draft 3 separate versions of its path around a boulder. It just flows. It chooses motion. It chooses the path of least resistance to movement, and that movement, by its very nature, creates momentum. It was a powerful, silent lesson. I realized I wasn't waiting for a huge, transformative lightning bolt. I was waiting for the tiny single first cog to turn, and I was the only one who could turn it. I was waiting for the overwhelming decision, like declaring a major, to feel easy, but that was never going to happen. Big, life-changing decisions are simply a sequence of smaller, easier ones stacked up like stepping stones. My mind, as always, started on the major debate. English or CS? English or CS? I slammed the mental brakes. Stop. That's too big, too paralyzing. I looked for the most immediate, small decision I had successfully avoided all day. Where should I go to get my homework done? I had 3 coffee shops I usually rotated through, each with its predictable flaw. Normally, this internal debate, analyzing seating, Wi-Fi speed, and outlet availability, would take 10 minutes. This time, I didn't think. I started walking towards the first one I saw, the one with the worst music and the creakiest chairs. Shop A. I didn't optimize for comfort or efficiency. I didn't analyze. I simply chose and kept moving. It felt almost reckless, but incredibly liberating. It was loud. The music was terrible. I didn't care. The simple act of choosing and moving had broken the inertia. I wasn't thinking about the background noise. I was reading the first chapter of my sociology textbook. The internal pressure valve had released, not because the decision was perfect, but because it was done. The mental friction had vanished. Can you recall a time when you finally acted and realized the difficulty was 90% in the thinking about it and only 10% in the doing? It cares. That's the game changer. I shifted my focus from how do I make the perfect choice to how do I make the next smallest step. The next morning, I faced the major application again. This time, instead of running the whole simulation, I broke it down even further. Step 1, open the CS curriculum page. Step 2, look at the course names. Step 3, just read the description of the first required course. CS 101. That's it. No commitment beyond reading one small paragraph. When I read that first description, I felt a spark of curiosity. Not a "this is my destiny" spark, but a simple "I might like this" spark. The mental simulation, the exhausting, high-stakes, life-or-death drama vanished. Action brought clarity that endless contemplation never could. I still didn't declare my major that day, but I registered for CS 101 for the next semester. That was the action. I realized the only way to test the water is to step in. My overthinking had been based on incomplete data, fabricated anxieties, and predicted outcomes that were highly likely to be wrong. By committing to just one class, I transformed the overwhelming, abstract problem, my whole career, into a manageable 16-week experiment. It was a test, not a lifetime sentence. This became my new rule. When faced with a decision, always choose the path of least resistance to action. If I couldn't decide between two research topics, I wouldn't spend 2 hours thinking. I would spend 30 minutes reading the abstract of the first one. If I couldn't decide what to wear, I picked the first clean thing off the top of the pile. I stopped demanding perfection from myself and started prioritizing motion. The energy I saved by not running those internal simulations was staggering. It wasn't just that I was getting more done. I was happier, more present. Overthinking is often rooted in a desire for control over outcomes we simply cannot have. By moving, even a little, I was accepting that perfection is a myth and that progress is the only true measure of success. You wouldn't expect to finish a marathon by standing at the starting line, calculating the precise angle of your first step. You just have to run. The overthinker's mind is a professional calculator at the starting line, constantly recalculating the course, but never moving their legs. The secret to breaking the cycle is understanding that the first step only needs to be directional, not definitive. It just needs to point you forward. What is the one decision that is currently draining you? Don't try to solve it right now. Just identify where you usually freeze. Is it before writing the email? Before making the call? Before sitting down at the piano? Identify the barrier and make the next step one that requires zero mental debate. Make the initiation so small it feels stupid to resist. The fear you feel when overthinking isn't the fear of failure. It's the fear of certainty. Because the minute you act, the universe gives you feedback, and that feedback might be uncomfortable. But that discomfort is where growth lives. That feedback is the fuel for your next, better, more informed action. Don't let your mind be an overflowing storage unit. Clear the room. Turn the first cog. Choose motion over perfection. Choose life over paralysis. What is your one small step today? Go do it.